All right, so now we are live. So hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Lucia, and I am your host for this exciting edition of Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. Now, for those of you who don't know, Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants is all about bringing adventure, science, and conservation into the classrooms around the world. Today, we have classrooms all around Ontario. So we have a grade 9 class from Cornwall, Ontario. We have a grade 5-6 class from Renfrew, Ontario. We have another grade 5-6 class from Sarnia and another grade 6 class from Milton. So we're all enjoying the beautiful Ontario weather that we have today. I'm in Ottawa and it's nice and rainy today. But for this whole month, we have been celebrating women in science and exploration by doing awesome hangouts with these pretty amazing ladies. But this week, not only are we just focusing on the women, but we also are celebrating Talk Energy Week. So we've teamed up with Ingenium and with the Canada Science and Technology Museum. So this whole week we have energy-themed hangouts with women. Now, our first hangout for Talk Energy Week is Eryn Stewart. So Eryn, she is part of the clean energy. She is the clean energy project manager at Lumos Energy. Where she helps develop sustainable energy opportunities for Indigenous communities. But I think that's enough of me talking since we are already delayed. So Eryn, why don't you take it away?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming into the presentation this morning. Yeah, my name is Eryn Stewart. I work in clean energy projects and have now for about 4 years, working with Indigenous communities, seeing what kind of clean energy projects we can bring to create a more sustainable future. So I'm sure you guys are familiar, but when I'm talking about clean energy projects, I'm talking about renewable energy projects, solar projects, wind projects, hydro projects, biomass, geothermal, but also energy efficiency projects in homes and buildings to make better and healthier homes. So I have a presentation for you guys today. If you have any questions, I guess we'll do questions at the end, but I'm happy to answer things whatever they may be, related either to technology, community, what I do, but I'll just be going over some things that I work on in the day-to-day. So I'm going to share my screen here. There we go. There's my presentation. Just give me a second here. Okay. So I thought I would start off just quickly telling you guys a little bit about me. So it's interesting that we have classrooms chiming in from all over Ontario because I'm from Ontario too. So I'm actually from Hamilton, big fan of the Hamilton Tiger Cats. I went to school in Ontario. I was in environment and business at the University of Waterloo, where I got interested in energy actually. And also some other related environmental projects. So that's actually a picture there of a cool.
Sorry, Eryn, we can't see your presentation.
You can't? Oh, okay.
No, not yet.
All right, interesting. Let me just see here. Okay. Oh, yeah, it's because I didn't actually share it. There we are. Can you see it now?
There we are.
Okay.
Yes, we can.
So
perfect.
So just to tell you guys a little bit about me, like I said, Hamilton Ticats fan, University of Waterloo. And when you're in university, I know that that's far off for some of you guys, maybe so something that the grade 9s are thinking about, but really think about what are your interests and what drives you. And for me, that was environment. So I got really interested in environmental initiatives. That picture there on the left, I actually got to go on tour with famous music artist, Jack Johnson. I don't know if you guys know him, but and working on his social and environmental marketing campaigns. I did the co-op program, so I got to work in 5 different jobs throughout my undergraduate degree, which is what got me interested in energy. So after I graduated, I then moved to Ottawa. So if you haven't had a chance to come to our nation's capital, it's a lovely place to come. But this is actually the Parliament Hill lit up at Christmas. So now I live in Ottawa and have for the past 4 years. I am, whoops, sorry. I love the outdoors, everything outdoors, whether that be in the summer, winter, diving, skiing. These are just some of the things that I love to do. So big into the environment. But what I'm here to talk to you guys about is Indigenous clean energy. So for those who maybe aren't as familiar with Indigenous communities, I just wanted to put up a couple interesting facts. So we have, 1.6, it says 1.1 according to Statistics Canada, but we have about 1.6 million people who identify as Indigenous. Those are First Nations, Métis, and Inuit communities. And that's about 4% of Canada's population, fastest growing population with the fastest growing youth. And so we work specifically with communities because there's a lot of communities that are interested in clean energy projects. So this is a map here that shows just how many clean energy projects Indigenous communities are involved there. So the blue representing hydro projects, the purple representing wind, the green representing biomass, and the yellow representing solar. So these projects here, these projects are large-scale projects that have Indigenous involvement, and they're usually partnerships with partners across the country. But so there's 152 of these large projects, but there's probably about 1,200 projects that are small and medium scale that I don't have on this map here. So just to give you a flavor of some of the projects that community is working on, this project on the left is actually a project in Ontario. This is with the Doquis First Nation, and this is a project that's actually built right in their community. So some Indigenous community energy projects are built within the community, and other ones might be within the traditional territory of the community, or they might be partnered with another Indigenous community and be working on those projects, sharing resources, sharing expertise. And this is a project on the right here. This is from Colville Lake, which is located in Northwest Territories. So this is a partnership between the First Nation and their utility, which is the Northwest Territories Power Corporation. And so it's just to show that, when people think solar, this community is 50 degrees into the Arctic Circle. So we went and visited this community back in March. But they're producing solar for their community, and it's been able to reduce the amount of diesel that they use in their community by a significant amount. And they're using energy storage backup to save some of that energy within the community. And communities have taken this to a whole nother level. So this here is Sioux Nation in British Columbia. This is Chief Gordon Planis here on the left. And they started off their sustainability initiatives or their clean energy initiatives looking at solar. So they installed solar panels on their community facility, on some of their homes. They put solar hot water into some of their community buildings. But now they've turned that into a whole green movement. So the picture on the right there is showing an electrical vehicle charging station they just installed in the community, as well as a greenhouse where they're actually growing wasabi. So this has turned into a whole different platform than just energy projects. This project here on the left, this is Carcross Tagish First Nation in Yukon. And what they're doing is this is an experimental microgrid project. So what they've done, what I mean by that is they've been able to take is everyone familiar with Tesla? Probably. So they've been able to take their power battery walls, integrate them into one another, and now they're producing solar. So this is like in the experimental phase, but it's something that they're starting now, and that's in the Yukon. And this here on the right, this is a very, very, very large wind project. It's 150 megawatts, and this is a collaboration between 3 of the Mi'kmaq communities in Quebec in partnership with a large developer called Indigenous. So the Mi'kmaq communities in Quebec negotiated with their partner to make sure that they had a 50% stake in this project and that it was going to be community-led and community-driven. So sustainability and community clean energy projects have been much more than just the project itself, but what are the employment opportunities and the economic development and those spin-off benefits that have happened with those projects? So what we realized with all of these projects, if communities wanted to get into clean energy projects, that the first stepping stone was actually building capacity within the community. All of the successful projects that we've seen here, whether it be the Mi'kmaq Wind Project, the Carcross Project, the Souk Project, the Dokis Project, Colville Lake, these were all driven by the community, and they were usually driven by somebody within the community that had a specific interest in clean energy projects or a sustainable future for their community. So in order, what we kind of see as the perfect form for building a clean energy project is to work on building up expertise in the community so that they can create a community energy plan where then they are able to create renewable energy projects or create new buildings or retrofit or renovate old buildings so that they're more energy efficient. So that's what I really focus on right now, is how can we make sure that there are more community champions that are leading these projects forward and learning from best practices. So we started an initiative called the 2020 Catalyst Program, which is an Indigenous clean energy capacity building program. So this is our cohort last year, and these individuals are from Indigenous communities all over Canada. So we're going into our third year now. And in our first year, we had representation from all of these provinces and territories across Canada in our program. And then the next year, we added another 21 participants to that mix. So what these people are doing is we take them to different locations in Canada to learn about clean energy projects, and we do this in different ways, whether it be going on a tour. So this is a tour of a large hydro project in New Brunswick, whether it's learning through outdoor engagement. So this is one of our mentors doing stream monitoring in Canmore, Alberta, or it's having discussions around what are the issues that we need to resolve in order for Indigenous communities to move clean energy projects forward. So something that's interesting about this program is that we move locations every year because it's a national program. So next year we'll be in Nova Scotia, Yukon, Ontario, and we keep changing those locations so that we're bringing in new expertise and new ideas into our network. And so these are some of the areas that we focus on, which is, renewable energy, energy efficiency, but also some of these other things like energy storage, looking at the infrastructure to build renewable energy projects. How do we make transportation more green? So we cover all of these topics within the curriculum. And one of a couple key things that we focus on is how do those community champions actually educate their own youth? It's great to bring in people from the outside, but being able to teach your own youth and learn from people that are interested in clean energy projects, that's kind of the message that we try to send. So this is a community in northern Alberta called Gwich'in Lake Band, and we ran with a community champion ran some community energy education. So these are some fun activities that we did with, these are the kindergartners here on the right. We actually built wind turbines with our grade 4s and 5s. So there's a lot of really cool things that you can learn and hands-on programming that we can do. So we've been trying to do that more and more in Indigenous communities. And as part of our program, we also do a lot of tours. So the picture there on the right, this is a wind turbine in southern Alberta. This is an energy efficient building that they're using as an Indigenous model, using Indigenous values to create that building. And this picture here on the left, this is actually a greenhouse in Alaska that is growing cucumbers and a number of other things using geothermal energy. Actually, no, this is a picture in Iceland, but there are communities in Iceland and Greenland and Alaska. So this is something that we're doing in Canada right now, but we're also doing it all over the world. And another important part of our program is that we're making sure that we're learning from others. So like I showed you in the picture, the graph before, there's so many communities across Canada that are doing this. So we want to teach others what are those best practices and lessons learned, so that communities aren't making maybe some of the same errors that other communities made, and that they're learning from the best people that have been doing this and thinking about this for years. So that's part of our program there. And the program, you know, is led by, when you build a clean energy project, there's a lot of expertise that go into building that project, whether that be technical expertise, construction, technical expertise to actually plan out how the project's going to be built, whether that be the construction workers that are actually physically laying out the groundwork for the project, whether that be the community that is leading and engaging their community members on this process. So there's a lot of different players and expertise. So what we try to do is bring all of those different expertise, both Indigenous leaders who have led projects, as well as clean energy practitioners that have helped with those projects, into one, so that we can teach many people with different expertise, teach the group of people. And through this process, we've seen really incredible impacts. So these two women on the right here, this is Wanda Westhaver and Lisa Francis, and they're from Nova Scotia. They're from Acadia First Nation in Nova Scotia. And what they're doing right now is this project here on the left. This is a hydro project, and it was established long ago. I don't know the year, but it's what they're doing now is they're renegotiating how the community can be involved in the rebuild of this project. So they're doing a lot of infrastructure rebuilding on this project. They're refurbishing it. And so they're making sure that the community's rights and values are being appreciated through this process, but they're also making sure that there's some economic benefits that they're getting through this piece. So Wanda and Lisa are leading that project on the Mersey River Hydro Redevelopment Project. This lady here on the right, this is Stacey Goulding, and she works, she's from Lecomo First Nation in British Columbia. So she went through our program and has since established a lot of different things in her community. So this is a list of impacts that her community outlined that they would like to do in their home. So they want to make clean energy projects, build energy efficient homes, conserve water, grow their own vegetables, all of these different things that they're doing within their community. And then they actually went and they're educating their youth to do their stream monitoring sampling. So they went through a training program, and she organized all of that. And then finally, she built a youth environmental and sustainability council that's overseen by elders within the community. So this way, all different people's perspectives are coming into what the community clean energy vision would be. And this is just a process that they were using to engage some of their stakeholders. Melina here on the left, so she actually has built her own solar project on their community health center. So she engaged the whole community. This is them at the bottom here, engaged their community, taught them about solar, and then actually they helped do the install. So she trained members to learn how to be solar installers, and the community actually helped build the project. And like I mentioned earlier, now she's working with youth to engage around future energy projects. So now that was a small project that they built on the community health center, and now they're looking at much bigger projects for their community. This is AJ Squilla, and he's from Ashkazegin Anishinaabe, which is Gull Bay First Nation. And he's from Ontario, northern Ontario. So there's a number of communities in Ontario that are running on diesel fuel and are not connected to the main grid that we all are connected to. And so he's now building a project that it's a solar project with energy storage, backup, battery storage. He's leading that process in his community. So these are just some of the newsletters that he has sent out to his community about their new clean energy project. This here is Blair Hogan. He's from the Yukon, and he just completed actually a biomass boiler project. So what a biomass boiler project is essentially it takes wood chips and then that converts it into energy. So I have a model here that I can show you guys, but this is a picture of him showing the wood chips, and this is the logs there are going to be churned into those wood chips, and then he's able to put those into a biomass boiler system. And he's been engaging his community throughout the entire process. So this is the Teslin Tlingit Council Joint Community Planning Guide here that they have, and they're making it very visual so that it's that they can engage all of their community members in this process. It's not just about the adults in the room, but how can the kids actually contribute to this process and see it in a very visual way and understand what their community is doing. And then finally, we have, this is a doctor, and he's actually works in Gwich'in Cree Nation, which is located in Northern Ontario, and he's a medical doctor there. And so his goal is to build healthier homes and buildings and communities. So, you know, when we live in Southern Ontario, we have this luxury of having these often beautiful, healthy, clean homes that don't have mold, and we don't have to worry about being cold at night and all of these other luxuries that we have. But that's not necessarily true in every community in Canada, and specifically some of the ones in our Northern Ontario communities. So Michael works in Gwich'in and is really concentrated on making sure that every person has the right and the privilege to live in a home that is safe, that is clean, that is healthy, and that they don't have to worry about air pollution. So that's Michael's main focus, is figuring out how we build healthier homes and communities. And so we're continuing to grow this network. I mean, this is a powerful movement that we've been able to establish, where communities are, for the first time in many ways, talking about what they're doing around clean energy with communities across Canada and across the world. So we're now growing that network. We built an online platform where community members, government, Indigenous communities, the energy associations, utilities that provide electricity to them, the partners that are working on those projects with communities can all collaborate on different initiatives and learn from one another through webinars, discussions, meetups, podcasts. So we're trying to find interactive ways like this Google Hangout for people across the country to engage around Indigenous clean energy, because most Canadians don't realize just how many communities are working in clean energy, and it's astonishing because it's such a success story. So we're trying to help create something. So this is just an example of what the platform looks like. But I want to stop there because I think that that's a lot of information that I've provided. And if you guys have any questions, I'd rather be able to make it pretty interactive. So I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Awesome. Perfect. Yeah, we can definitely go around and take questions from every class. And if there's anyone on YouTube who's watching live, you guys are welcome to ask questions on there, and keeping an eye on the YouTube page also if any questions pop up there. But we can start with Mrs. Maynard's class from Cornwall, Ontario. Do you guys have any questions there?
Yes, okay, go ahead. Then can you hear?
Yeah, we can hear you. Go for it.
What's your favorite part about your job?
Yeah. Oh gosh, that's actually a harder question. No, I think I've been able to, like, coming from Southern Ontario, I think I didn't know enough about communities. I'd worked for Indigenous and Northern Affairs Canada But until you actually get to go to communities and interact with them, and really appreciate culture, that's been the most valuable component of my job. Like building projects, seeing them get completed is cool, but actually understanding what clean energy projects have brought to the community and just how much pride it brings communities has been the most rewarding part of my job. And I guess also with that, I mean, I get to go to some pretty remote places all over Canada, fly-in communities, and just places that people don't get to see. So that's an incredible part of my job too.
Awesome, great question. We can move on to Madame Zimmer's class. Do we have a question there?
Yes, we do.
Awesome, let's hear it.
We've got lots of questions for you.
If we start using renewable energy such as solar power or wind turbines, will it affect our climate in any way? Will it make places more hotter or colder?
So if we use renewable energy?
Teacher Woods.
Yeah, if we start using renewable energy such as solar power or wind turbines, will it affect our climate in any way? Will it make places more hotter or colder?
Thank you.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So when we look at clean energy projects, they're pretty. If you look at indigenous values, they're really focused on protecting and preserving Mother Earth, and so that's trying to keep the planet and the Earth the way that it was intended to be. So for the North, that would be the right to be cold. In the South, I mean, I'm talking really south, that would be keeping it warmer. In places like, Southern Ontario, it's keeping the environment so that we have our colder winters and that we have our warmer summers. So by integrating more renewable energy sources, it's keeping that synergy between what the Earth was intended to do. So in those different areas. So if you're looking at a northern community, they're using a lot of non-renewable resources. So in the case of the North, usually diesel fuel. And if we look at the impacts of diesel fuel on the environment, they're a lot worse than that of something like solar or wind. So the more that we can integrate renewables in areas like that, the better off our environment and our Earth will be.
Awesome. Now we can move on to Miss Fraley's class from Sarnia, Ontario.
Yep, we have a question here.
Did the First Nations, did they already know about solar energy, or did you bring the solar energy to them?
Well, I mean, I definitely can't take credit for that. Absolutely. So I would say Indigenous communities, probably since the early 2000s, have been working on renewable energy projects in some way, shape, or form. And some of them, a lot of the times, it was that the communities saw that renewable energies was the way to the future and the way to create a cleaner environment for their community. So that was completely led and steered by the community themselves. What I've been able to do is we've been able to help communities navigate that path sometimes. So we work with them to make sure that the partners that they're working with on these clean energy projects are respecting the Indigenous communities' values and needs and wants, and really working with them in a way that's meaningful, and those relationships are working well, and that they get the most employment opportunities that they can out of that. So that's where we work on things. So we also work a lot on the technical pieces. So we have a lot of people within the organization or people that we work with that bring a certain level of technical expertise to the project. So some communities already have that in-house. They have people that are engineers and can work out the design and function of the renewable energy project, but there's a lot of communities that don't have that luxury. So we try to bring those to the communities the best we can.
Awesome. Now we're going to see if we can get a question from Miss LaFerb's class. We can't see you guys, but I think we can hear you.
Have a question?
I don't think so.
We weren't expecting you to be able to see us or hear us because our computer's being weird, so we haven't really thought of our questions.
Okay, we could come back to you if you want, if you want to think about it.
Sure.
Okay, so we'll jump up to Miss Maynard's class again. Do you guys have another question you would like to ask?
Yes, we do.
Awesome.
Do you think one day the world will run on clean energy?
Do I think the world will run on clean energy? That's a tough question. So when you look at the energy system, you know, in Canada, or let's say within the province of Ontario, it's the job of the regulator to ensure that there's stability within the province. So that's making sure that everyone can keep their lights on and turn them on when they need to, and so that's their role. And so when you bring in things like wind specifically and solar, it creates some instability within that system. And so in order for it to be completely renewable, it would be difficult. But that's not to say that there can't be more renewable energy integrated into the project. Where I think a lot of the growth actually will be in is in things like green infrastructure. So what can we do to make sure that there's more electric vehicles that are going onto the road? What can we do to make sure that homes are more energy efficient or net zero? So these are the areas that I see a lot of growth in. But if you look at different provinces like Quebec, they're, I think, 98% renewable energy. So they run largely on hydro because it's consistent. So if there's resources like that, then it'll bring more consistency. But if not, I see that there's a lot of potential for clean energy, but not necessarily renewable energy. I hope that makes sense.
Awesome. All right, let's see if Miss Lefebvre's class, I'm sorry, I keep saying that very wrong. Did you guys come up with a question?
Yeah, we do. Go ahead.
Awesome.
Okay. What would happen if you don't use clean energy?
All right. That's a really good question. I mean, I'm sure you guys, maybe with Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants, you'll have climate scientists that'll tell you a little bit more about that. But essentially, it's kind of a hard question because there are places that don't have any renewable energy integration and they're doing just fine. But what's happening is, you know, it's a much larger picture than just renewable energy. Is the earth is continuously getting warmer. You know, we learn all about climate change. And so what renewable energy does is it helps offset or create renewable energy just helps reduce that amount. So hopefully we can find some solutions, but I'm trying to get the right answer for that, but I'm not. It's a tough question. It's a really tough question.
All right, so let's move on to Madame Zimmer's class again. You guys have another question?
Yes, we've got lots. So we've got a two-parter here.
All right.
What is the real reason renewable energy sources are not more prevalent here?
Can we really supply 100% of our energy? Can we really supply 100% of our energy needs without fossil fuels?
All right. So did you get both parts there?
Yeah, I did. Okay. So can you say those ones again? Can you say the first part again, just so I have it?
What is
questions?
the real reason renewable energy sources are not more prevalent here?
Yeah. And okay, so I'll answer that part first. And you know, the reason why they're not more prevalent here, they are pretty prevalent. I mean, let's start with that. Specifically in Ontario, like we're using a lot of hydro, we've integrated a lot of wind, we've integrated a lot of solar into our system. But one of the reasons why it's not been integrated fully is because is going back to kind of the last question that I answered, which was, in order to keep our system stable, it requires renewable, or it requires resources that stabilize the grid that we live in. And so when we add things like renewables, sometimes it takes that stability off, or it doesn't create a stable environment. And so that's the reason why, it's difficult, and there's a lot of regulations and policy that go into bringing renewables on board. And specifically in Ontario, people believe that we brought on renewables too fast. And as a result, it's cost people a lot of money. So when your parents pay their bills each month, sometimes renewable energy can be more expensive than that of what we currently have. And so that brings a lot of fear to people that are paying their bills, that if they bring on more renewables, it'll be more expensive. So in order for there to be more renewables, one, it has to get cheaper, but also the policy and regulation needs to support that environment.
Awesome. Was that answered both parts, right?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. And then we can go to Miss Fraley's class. Do you guys have another question there?
Yes, we do. Hi.
Hi.
What inspired you to get your job?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I was working for the federal government when I was in university, and I worked on a lot of projects that had to do with non-renewable resources. And the reason why Indigenous communities were interested in those projects was because, the reasons why they were interested in those projects was because usually it created economic development or job opportunities for the community. But there was a lot of things to do with those non-renewable energy resources that people didn't like. The fact that it was invasive to their land, it was creating more issues, it wasn't protecting the wildlife, and they weren't able to maybe hunt fully. So there was all of these things that kind of went against those values of communities. And so when I started thinking about my job, I wanted to figure out something that could still provide communities with job opportunities and advancement opportunities and self-sufficiency opportunities, but that something that wasn't hurting their land and disrespecting their values. And so that's why I started working in this. And also, I think something that you guys should know about is, I don't know what they're teaching in school these days, but when I was in school, they didn't really talk about the poor relations that we've had, that Canada's had with Indigenous communities. There's a lot of history about things that have happened in the past. And I think anything that I could do in my job to help my Indigenous friends and just make things right, I guess, from my own personal perspective, that's what really motivated me to do my job.
Awesome. And we'll take our final question from Miss Liv. Oh man, I'm gonna say it wrong again. And Miss Lefber's class.
Lefay, go ahead. Or does anyone else have a question?
Hey guys, does anyone else? You guys animal
I didn't hear any of that. Sorry. What did he say?
Yeah, can you guys speak up closer to the mic, please?
What animal would be most endangered if we didn't use clean energy?
Oh, I would say all of them. You know, all of them, including ourselves, right? So we're trying to create a cleaner environment, and that affects all animals. You know, whether that be the ones in our waterways, you know, the ones on land. You know, we've seen, like, obviously, I think when everyone thinks about it, they think polar bears, right? They're like, polar bears, the ice caps are melting, and we need to protect the polar bears. Which is true, but there's a lot of other animals that are also hugely affected. So I honestly don't know how to answer that question, because it really impacts our whole earth, our whole environment, and that's all animals, including us.
Definitely a lot of animals there. All right, so that brings us to the end of our Google Hangout. Thank you so much, Eryn, for taking time out of your schedule to talk with everyone here.
No problem.
We definitely all learned a lot. Thank you for all the schools for joining us. Sorry for the delays in the beginning there. I got to figure out my computer issues. I don't know what happened there. But thanks for joining us. I hope everyone has a great day and happy Talk Energy Week to everyone.
I'll say one more thing really quickly is if you want to learn more about Indigenous clean energy projects across Canada, we actually have a YouTube channel. So you can watch what all these communities have to say. So I can tell you all I want about what community projects are doing it, but it's better to hear it from the communities themselves. So that's a really good way to do it. So if you want to learn more, check out the YouTube channel, Indigenous Clean Energy Network.
Awesome. Definitely check out Indigenous Clean Energy Network. But I'll turn up everyone's mics and everyone can say goodbye and as loud as you'd like. Nice big waves to everyone. And once again, have a great day. So bye, everyone.
Bye.